You're listening to the Cyberwire Network, powered by N2K.
They partnered with CISA in order to kind of put on a tabletop exercise that not only covers what they do within the NFL to manage particular incidents, but also to understand what private sector and public sector entities in the location of their event, how they manage an incident.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the CyberWire's Hacking Humans podcast, where each week we look behind the social engineering scams, the phishing schemes, and criminal exploits that are making headlines and taking a heavy toll on organizations around the world. I'm Dave Bittner, and joining me is Joe Kerrigan from the Johns Hopkins University Information Security Institute. Hello, Joe.
Hi, Dave.
We got some good stories to share this week. And later in the show, Joseph Oregon, he is Chief of Cybersecurity for CISA in Area Region 9. We are discussing the recent tabletop exercise that CISA conducted with the National Football League. But first, a word from our sponsors at KnowBe4. Time travel would be a particularly powerful tool in the hands of any overworked InfoSec professional. Think about it. Being able to see the future and know which malicious emails would be missed by all the existing filters. Your ability to stay one step ahead of the bad actors would rise to a whole new level. Unfortunately, our sponsors haven't cracked time travel just yet. They are, however, introducing a new phishing protection product that can block and remove dangerous phishing emails before your users even see them. Stay with us, and in a few minutes, you'll learn how. All right, Joe, before we get into our stories here, we've got a couple little items of follow-up. What do you got for us?
Yes, first I wanted to say thank you to Tiffany for stopping by the booth at Grace Hopper. She did not know who I was until I said my name. And once I told her who I was, it was the first time somebody actually said, "Oh, it's you." And never had that happen before.
Did she recognize your voice?
She did not.
Ah, okay.
That hasn't happened yet.
Okay.
But once I said my name, she was looking at the CyberWire swag that you sent me down with. And,
okay.
She's, "Oh, I love these shows." I'm like, "Well, what's your favorite one?"
Did she say caveat with Ben Yellen?
No, she said it was Hacking Humans, actually.
Okay, very
so
good.
I was like,
good.
That's a very good. And
right, that's the ding, 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 ding.
right answer.
Very good, very good.
So thank you, Tiffany, for stopping by. It was the highlight of my event down there.
That's nice. That's nice.
Also want to thank Jason. Jason made a recommendation for Microsoft Power Toys because he heard me complaining that I'm not entering a Bitcoin address to see if anybody's been scammed from an image.
Oh,
right?
okay.
So he recommended Power Toys, which will let you snap a picture of an image on your screen and then will convert it to text. It does a whole mess of other things too, some really cool stuff. So if you're a Windows user, I recommend checking it out.
It's just sort of a utility program that has a lot of different functionality?
It is.
Okay.
It is. There was something similar that Microsoft had years ago.
Yeah.
I remember one of the things it did was turn your give you in the command prompt, it gave you an ls command that was very similar to a Linux ls command.
Huh, okay.
But I can't remember what that was called, but they don't make it anymore. They don't distribute it.
Okay.
Finally, Rory wrote in about our tinfoil hat discussion a couple of weeks ago where I was talking about my car. Every time I drive by the dealership,
right,
I get an email. And he said they could be using an automated license plate reader that looks up your license plate. You don't have to have anything in the car.
Oh.
But then he says, it seems that it's much less expensive just to be sending people emails who've bought cars from you in the past. Probably a coincidence, what Rory says.
Right.
So I'm going to take my tinfoil hat off and go with the Occam's razor explanation.
Okay. Well, that makes sense.
That's probably correct.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks to everyone who wrote into us. Of course, we would love to hear from you. It's hackinghumans@n2k.com. All right, Joe, let's jump into our stories here. Why don't you kick things off for us?
Dave, we have conducted a cybersecurity survey at the Information Security Institute.
Oh,
and I want to talk about that survey.
All right.
This was commissioned by the Maryland Cybersecurity Council, and we had some funding from the National Cryptologic Foundation, as well as ISI, the Information Security Institute.
Okay.
This is a pilot study
All right.
Which, in other words, what we're hoping on, what we're hoping comes out of this is another more formalized study.
I see.
Because we conducted this survey using Amazon's MTurk. Are you familiar with MTurk?
The Mechanical Turk?
Mechanical Turk,
Yep.
right. But they call it MTurk now.
Oh, well, how streamlined.
That's right.
Yeah.
They have, that's the marketing guys. I'm sure there's some marketing guy that got a big raise for that.
Right.
So the way this works is people sign up on MTurk to be workers, and then people sign up to be requesters. And you can send a request for some human intelligence task, or a HIT, as they call it,
Okay.
out to the workers. And then the workers get paid some amount of money for doing it. And this is actually pretty common for doing surveys like this.
Okay.
One of the things that we were able to do was limit the audience or the respondent list to Maryland residents over the age of 18. And we got 549 valid responses
Okay.
back. Some of the interesting findings from this survey is that 2/3 of people, 66 or 67%, said they had had some form of security awareness training in the past year,
Okay.
which I think is interesting.
Yeah.
Does that mean that everybody else is getting targeted? Everybody else is falling for these scams. I don't want to say falling for the scams, but getting tricked by these scams is in that other 33%? Probably not.
No, but I would say they're at a disadvantage probably.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I would agree they're at a disadvantage.
Yeah.
We asked about people's data backups, how they back up their data.
Mm-hmm.
There was one interesting piece of information that came out of this. There's a small portion of people that say they don't back up their data. Some people say they send it off-site, but 39% of people say they use a cloud service like OneDrive or Google Drive or Carbonite or something like that.
Right.
But when we asked how frequently they back up, only 16% of people said that they back up continuously. Which is interesting, I think, because if you're using OneDrive or Google Drive, or I'm not sure how Carbonite works, but I think it backs up. Their literature says they back up continuously. Whenever a file changes, that file gets uploaded to the storage provider.
Okay.
So I think there's some kind of technical misunderstanding.
Yeah, I mean,
on a fundamental level.
that's
here.
interesting because, like, I use Time Machine, which is Apple's built-in backup utility, and it probably backs up 2 or 3 times an hour, I'd say. It runs this little routine to...
That's probably as close... I'd call that continuous.
Well, that was my question. Would you... So would you consider that to be continuously?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would consider that to be continuous. Now...
I would.
Here's the thing. When we do this the next survey, the follow-on survey, we're going to be a little more clear in our questions.
Okay.
Right? I'm hoping, what I'm really hoping, Dave, is that we can do interviews with people.
Oh.
So we can suss this out.
Okay.
And get better, finer, granular answers.
Right.
I don't know how that's going to work. I don't know what this looks like, but that's really what we're hoping. 90% of respondents said that they had verified their backups within the past year. I'm a little dubious of that claim.
Well, I guess part of me wonders if the verification was needing to go to their backups because something bad had happened.
Right.
Right? Not just checking for the sake of checking, but like, oh, crap. Right?
I hope these backups worked.
Yeah. So that does seem high to me, but if it's true, that's a good number.
Right.
Yeah.
I would imagine that a lot of those people are people who use those online services and just rely on them for storage.
Yeah.
And that could be considered a I use them, and I consider it one of my forms of backup. The problem with it is that if you fall victim to ransomware, a lot of times those are also encrypted as well.
Right.
Now, I don't know since I've never fallen for ransomware, never had to go through this process myself, I don't know what the recovery options are from the cloud provider. They might be good. I don't know.
Yeah.
We asked some knowledge-based questions. So, and I'm gonna get on a soapbox here. The very first one is I asked, what is the definition of social engineering in an information security context?
Okay.
25% of the respondents got it right. There were 4 possible options plus an I don't know. So,
Okay. Is I don't know considered wrong?
I don't know. That's a good question. I would say yes. They did not get it correct.
Ding, 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 ding. Okay.
Only 25% of people got this right. This points to one of my biggest pet peeves in all of what we do here, and that's the jargon. I don't think this is a good term. I don't think social engineering is a good term. I think it brings to mind something else. It's not really descriptive.
Yeah.
You have to be in the information security environment, or at least familiar with it or adjacent enough to it to know that social engineering is essentially scamming people.
What would you call it? What would you prefer it be called?
That's an excellent question, Dave. I've complained about this so long, I should have an answer to that question, but I don't.
I see.
Next week, I'll try to have an answer for that. Hey, you know what? Let's solicit listener input here. Instead of calling it social engineering, what should you call it?
Joe. Nice.
Online scams.
Offload it onto our listeners. I love it.
They love doing this stuff for me.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Joe has asked me for something.
Okay.
Spear phishing. About 50% of people, 49%, knew what spear phishing was.
Okay.
Phishing, 61% of people knew what that was. What's interesting is this is the only question we asked that lines up pretty much directly with one of the proof point questions.
Okay.
From the last time I talked about the proof point State of the Fish report.
Right.
And they said 58% of people knew what phishing was. So we're pretty close there, 61, 58. It's only 3 points of difference.
Yeah.
Right? So that gives me some confidence in what we collected here. Here's the biggest surprise. 70% of people knew what multi-factor authentication was.
Okay.
Which is great.
That is great.
We asked some cybersecurity hygiene questions. We asked, where do you use multi-factor authentication? And we let people choose one. And some people said, 42% said they use it on their important accounts. 25% of people said they use it on most accounts. And 23% said they use it wherever it's offered.
Okay.
So I don't know how I feel about this one. I mean, I'm okay if you only use it to protect your important accounts.
Right.
There are accounts I don't use multi-factor authentication on.
Me too.
Right. So, I mean, what happens if I lose access to that account? I can call that company and say, I've lost access to the account. Somebody's changed my password.
Right.
And then, maybe if it's somebody I pay, I'll just stop paying them.
Yeah.
Create a new account.
Yeah.
Not a big deal. Right. It's not a big loss.
Part of your risk assessment, your personal
part of my risk
assessment.
assessment. Exactly. Now, if it's my bank where I'm going to lose money,
right?
Yeah, that's a different risk. That's a different level of risk. That's a different level of misery should something go wrong.
For me, there are accounts that I consider to be disposable,
right.
Like one and done.
Yep.
Or I will rarely interact with this organization and I know it.
Right.
And they don't have any of my financial information or anything like that. And for those sorts of things, I hate to say it, but the extra sort of pain in the butt that multi-factor can be
right.
makes me not do it. Because in my risk assessment, it's not risky enough to make it worth the extra steps.
Streaming services are a great example of this. Right?
Interesting.
So if I'm trying to log in on my television,
right? Oh boy,
am I going to walk up and put my YubiKey in the back of the TV's USB drive and hope that it works?
Yeah.
Hope the thing goes okay. Let's set up a YubiKey. No,
right.
No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not even going to go so far as to enter a code. I'm just going to use a pretty good password.
Yeah.
One that I can still enter with a click, 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 click. I hate that.
Right.
I'll tell you, if there are anybody from a streaming service listening, some of you guys are doing it right, where you take a picture with your phone and you can log in on your phone, and some of you guys are doing it wrong. I'm looking at you, Disney. You're not doing it right.
Well, I'll give you a hard time and say one of the nice things about being on Planet Macintosh is that if you were using like an Apple TV, you can actually use the keyboard built into your phone to enter those sorts of passwords. So you don't have to click, click, click around. You can actually use a virtual keyboard.
That is one of the big advantages with going with Apple is the user experience is top notch. I can't dispute that.
Right.
It is a great user experience if you're a cult member. No, it is seriously. It's a good user experience, and that's always been the focus of the company.
Yeah. What else?
What form of multi-factor authentication do you use? This was check all that apply. Only 7.5% of people said they're using a hardware token, like a YubiKey. We've seen that in other reports be higher.
Yeah.
So I think we've seen it up to like 11%. I don't know if we're outside of the margin of error here. Probably not.
Yeah.
But it doesn't shock me because there's a cost associated with it. Use a multi-factor authentication device of some kind. How do you choose your password? 20% of people said they use the same password for most of their accounts, and 10% of people said they use their same password for all of their accounts.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all.
It doesn't. Now, these were not mutually exclusive. They could have selected both, but that means at least 20% of these people are just asking for credential stuffing attacks.
Right.
That is a terrible, terrible way to go about your password management.
Yeah.
26% said they use long and complex passwords, and then we followed on and said, how do you remember your passwords? And 28% said they use a password manager, which kind of goes in line with the 26% who use long and complex passwords.
They kind of go hand in hand, right?
If you're using a password manager, why not use the feature of the password manager that generates the great passwords?
And one makes the other tenable,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
29% said they write their passwords down.
Okay.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
for a lot of things. Don't leave it out in the open. Keep it in a notebook. But nobody is going to break into your computer and steal your physical notebook sitting next to your computer.
Right. That's very unlikely.
It is.
Yeah.
They break into your house. That's a different issue.
Yeah.
41% say they remember them, which means that's how they they're remembering all their passwords. They're probably using weak passwords.
Just memorizing them. Yeah. I wonder how many of them have what they believe is a brilliant system of variation on their passwords that is, in reality, very easy for any type of automation to unpack and break. Right?
Of that 41%, I'll bet it's close to 100%.
Yeah, sadly. What else did you guys look at?
So we looked at victimization as well, which was kind of we were surprised, but not terribly surprised. 20% of people who responded say they've been some kind of victim of ransomware. 45%, this is one of the shocking features of the report, of the data. 45% said that their information had been breached, and 38% said that their information had not been breached, and 17% said they didn't know. So 17 plus 38 is 55% of people, and that is 55% of people who are probably wrong.
Yeah.
Because that should be 100%.
Right.
So this is a significant finding from this report, that people just don't understand. 1 in 2 people, at pretty close to 1 in 2 people, do not understand that their data is out there and available, and it is. That's something that we have to get the message out about.
Yeah, it's interesting.
We asked people respondents if they've lost any money due to an online scam. 23% of people said they had lost money to an online scam, which is a big number. We were surprised by how large that number was. And when we asked them how much money they had lost, those numbers were also shocking. We had 2 people that said they lost $100,000.
Wow.
Now, those data points might not be accurate, but they are within the ballpark. We'll have a story coming up soon where we're talking to somebody about losses in the hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Right.
This is not unheard of. The average loss, and just by average I mean mean, was about $3,000. And if you took out the 2 outliers, we're still around $1,500 for an average loss. There were 9 respondents who claimed to have lost tens of thousands of dollars.
Wow.
So you do the naive calculation and extrapolate that out to the rest of the population of Maryland, and you're looking at a total loss of around $2.1 billion. Now, granted, that's a naive calculation,
right?
But it uses a lower number. So what are we going to do next? We're going to do a more formal study with hopefully more respondents. I'd like to get up around 1,000 to 2,000 people queried for this survey. I'd like to distribute the sampling across the state a little more evenly. We had some overrepresentation from some areas, like Western Maryland.
Right.
I would like to get a more random sample, and I'd like to ask some follow-on questions, and I'd really like to do this in the form of interviews.
What do you ultimately hope happens with this? Is this information that you're gathering to then try to take to policymakers?
Yes,
or
that's an excellent question, Dave. Why are we doing this? Why spend all this money? That's exactly what we want to do. We want to take it to policymakers and have them work on some kind of public education campaign.
Okay.
That's what's got to happen here. The fact that that more than half the people in this state don't know that their data is out there and been breached. That's a problem.
Yeah.
The fact that 25% of the people who responded to our survey said that they had been the victim of some scam where they lost money, that's another problem. Those are the two biggest problems that are made evident here. And that's really what I would like to see a campaign on. Those are the two most impactful things, I think.
All right. Well, interesting results, certainly. I mean, even for just a pilot study, that's some really interesting data in there.
Yeah, we'll have a paper out, and I think we're doing a talk or a panel talk at the Cyber Maryland conference in December.
Okay. All right. Terrific. All right. Well, my story this week comes from the folks over at CNBC. This is an article written by Greg Iacurci, and it's titled, How This 77-Year-Old Widow Lost $661,000 in a Common Tech Scam.
See, $100,000 isn't that much.
Yeah. She said, I realized I had been defrauded of everything.
Oh, God, that's heartbreaking.
This is a woman named Marjorie Bloom. She had wired. Well, let me back up and just describe what had happened.
Right.
She had something pop up on her screen, tech support scam, a type of thing we've talked about here many times.
Right.
Microsoft needs to get in touch with you right away because there's a problem on your computer. Please call us right now. Your computer won't work until you call us right now. I described this recently that this happened to my father on his Chromebook.
Yes.
Right, which is not a Microsoft machine.
It's not. They don't care. They'll put it on a Chromebook, and when somebody calls, they'll say, oh, yeah, this is Microsoft. Oh, yeah, we do the Chromebook.
That's right. So Mrs. Bloom, who is 77 years old, she's a widow, she called and spoke to the person at Microsoft Tech Support, who was, of course, very friendly and started asking her questions about things and was telling her all about the problems with her computer. And this person said that by looking on her computer, he could see that there was a pending financial transfer, and the only way to protect herself against this transfer is to get that money out of the account.
And give it to me for safekeeping, right?
Well, he actually went even farther than that. He connected her with and I'm using big old air quotes here,
right,
a fraud investigator at her bank. So in the course of the conversation, he had asked her who she banks with. She told him. He said, "Oh, good news! I can transfer you to that person."
Right.
Put her on hold.
It doesn't matter what bank you say. They'll transfer you to that bank's fraud investigation.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
You can even make a bank up, and they'll transfer you to Joe's new bank of Joe's Capital Bank of Maryland.
Yeah. Good news. I have one of their fraud investigators right here on my speed dial. So transferred over to her, or to the person claiming to be someone from her bank, and that. Again, scammer verified that sure enough, there was pending transfers here, and the only way that they could save her from losing this money was to move it quickly, and also told her that if she told anyone, including any of her 3 children, that could compromise their efforts. Right?
The isolation play.
Right, exactly. So that's what she did. And long and short of it is she ended up transferring over $661,000.
Oh, my gosh.
Which was her nest egg.
Yep.
She was a professional. She had her own career. So she's not destitute now. She has Social Security. She still has, she has some other investments. But
right.
She's really heartbroken. She said that, she used to enjoy traveling and she was hoping of passing on this nest egg to her children.
Yeah.
And that's not going to happen now.
No.
She can't travel. She can't pass it on. She's not out of her home. She still can put food on the table.
Right.
But
her quality of life has been significantly impacted.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. There's a couple of other sort of interesting details about this. She sued the bank.
She did.
She did. she sued the bank and claiming that there should have been enough red flags, which was going on here, money being transferred, large amounts of money from a senior person being transferred overseas in the ways that it was done, that the bank employees should have been trained to have this be a red flag.
Right.
And put a stop to it.
Yeah. And how did that lawsuit turn out?
The bank settled.
The bank settled.
Yep.
Okay.
So we don't know how much she got, but the bank did settle. Actually, one of the claims got dismissed, and so there were two claims that she had against the bank, and I don't remember specifically what they were about, but one of them got dismissed, and then the other one, the bank did settle. So I don't know to what degree was she made whole. I'd be very surprised if she got everything back.
Right, and I'd also be very surprised if she was allowed to talk about how much she got back.
Yeah.
She says, in the article here, there's a headline that says, somebody should have asked. You know, I think, I don't know if this needs to be regulatory, but it seems to me like banks would be operating in their own interests if when somebody, they just put some kind of monitoring system.
Right.
So that when somebody started transferring money, large amounts of money out, and they're going to banks overseas, there's a phone call.
Mm-hmm.
There's a phone call that's being made. And nothing happens. That bank doesn't leave until they talk to the customer and they say to the customer, I need you to come in here.
Right.
In order for you to do this, you're going to have to come in here.
Right.
And we're going to have to talk about it. And you're going to have to tell us why you're transferring your own money.
Yeah. Well, and this article goes into that too. By the way, I should say that I misspoke a little bit. I oversimplified the story here. The initial transfer of the money out of her bank account, and she lives in Maryland near us.
Okay.
The initial transfer went to a bank in New York.
New York. Okay.
So the scammers, using the information they had gathered from her computer, set up a bank account in her name in New York.
Okay, so it was going to a fraudulent bank account in her name.
Right.
So, okay, so now what about the bank in New York that allowed a fraudulent account to be created in her name?
That bank doesn't exist anymore. And for good reason. No, but
it would seem.
Right. That bank went out of business. But you could see how that could lower some of the red flags for the transfer. If you're transferring money from you to you,
right,
that could
just go right through any filters.
Right. But this article also points out that, there are banking regulations. There's know your customer rules, things like that. But when it comes to these electronic wire transfers, it's still a part of the banking industry that it's hard to claw things back.
Right.
And I don't understand why. I mean, there must be a practical reason for it, and if someone out there is in the banking industry and can explain it to us, perhaps it's just as simple as they don't want to introduce friction to, a system that's working 99.9% of the time.
Or maybe they're trying to prevent something like the double spend problem. You get your money back after fraudulently.
Right. Perhaps it would cause more problems than it solves.
Right.
I don't know. But
we're not bankers.
Sure seems like we could do better than we are doing now, particularly when we see folks having these sorts of problems. So it's really a heartbreaking story. I mean, I suppose it's good that several good things here. I mean, she's not destitute.
Right.
Seems as though she got something back from the bank, and we'll never know what that is. And she's sharing her story.
Yeah, that's really important. Marjorie, thank you very much for sharing your story. I don't know if you'll ever hear this, but this is important to do. This is something I say frequently. You're not the only person that falls for this. You're not the only person that can fall for this.
Yeah.
In fact, the people that can fall for this is everybody. There's something out there that works on everybody.
Yeah.
And I've been saying that since we started this show. And one of the things I told myself I would never say is I would never fall for any of these things.
Right.
In fact, what I did was the opposite. And I've even identified this in this podcast of things that would work on me.
Yeah.
Things there's something that would work on me.
Yeah. Nobody's immune.
Yeah, nobody's immune.
Right.
The problem here is that when you get this alert coming up on your computer, and then you call the number, and then they say, "Oh, there's also a a financial transaction happening at your bank and they transfer you to somebody else who goes, oh, yes, now you're panicking. And you're not thinking clearly. And that's what their objective is. Their objective is to scare the bejesus out of you.
That's right.
So that you do whatever they say.
Yeah, they use the term of art in here, something with your amygdala. They refer to like short-circuiting your amygdala, which is the part of your brain that handles rational thought. No,
the amygdala is not. The amygdala is down at the base of your brain.
Oh, so it's the opposite of that.
It's the opposite of that.
So they're stimulating your amygdala.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
The amygdala is called cognitive narrowing is what they're trying to induce.
Okay.
And what happens is you perceive a threat and immediately your amygdala fires off and it starts up the fight or flight response that dumps adrenaline into your bloodstream or signals your adrenal glands to dump adrenaline into your bloodstream. You'll actually start breathing heavier and your heart will race. That's from the amygdala. And the amygdala is actually really, really, really fast and really, really, really good at processing threats. If that threat is a bear in the woods, that's excellent, right? Because it says, okay, I'm going to run away from this bear.
Yeah.
And that's why we've lived as long as we have as a species. But when somebody scares you and says your money's about to go away, the same thing happens. And you need to just take a breath, calm down, and step back. And so, wait a minute. This isn't how this works. It's very difficult to do when you're in that situation, when you're in the condition.
Yeah.
The best thing to do in any of these situations is hang up and directly call your bank. And go, look, there's somebody trying to scam me out of money. Lock my accounts down, please.
Right.
Call your bank at the number that you know is good. Do not call the bank on any number that anybody on an inbound phone call gives you.
Right.
Look up the number and call it.
Right. All right. Well, we will have a link to this story in the show notes. This article is particularly good in the amount of details that it shares here. Very often, these sorts of reporting on scams are just kind of at the surface levels, but this goes into some depth. So
yeah, Marjorie put a lot of time into sharing her story here.
Yeah, I would recommend you check it out. This is a good one to sort of spread around with your friends and loved ones too, because there's a lot of good stuff in here.
Yeah.
All right, Joe, it is time to move on to our catch of the day.
Dave, our catch of the day comes from Damien. The subject of this email is just attention, and I'm just going to let you read it because it's fantastic.
All right. It says, hello, greetings from the Federal Reserve Bank of USA. I am Mr. Jerome H. Powell from the Federal Reserve Bank of USA. Am here to deliver your ATM card of 16.7 USD, which has been in our office since last week.
Dave.
Yeah.
You missed a very important word there. 16.7 million USD.
Oh, I'm sorry. To deliver your ATM card of 16.7 million USD, which has been in our office since last week. And there's one man that came to my office and said, you are dead. That he's your next of kin. He came to claim your ATM card from us, and I said no, that I will text you first and confirm that you are dead. What?
Because, are you dead?
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Phew. Right. All right. Logic. Because the man is still on my office right now, keeps saying that you are dead, that he wanted to claim your ATM card from us. So if you know that you are not dead, kindly get back to me with your full information so that I can confirm your ATM card immediately with your information like these.
And then it asks for full name, home address, ID card, occupation, cell number, and country.
This is like in elementary school when the teacher would say, everybody who's not here, raise your hand. Right?
Like, exactly.
Yeah.
This was great. When Damien sent this along, he actually forwarded the email that he received, and all the emails this was sent to were just in the CC field. And they all started with a D. And Damien postulated maybe the spammer only had enough money to pay for the letter D for the mailing list.
Right.
I think what's happening is that's just one of many emails that went out. Damien.
It's just one long run-on sentence.
It is.
I mean,
that's another great thing about it.
Yeah.
And it correct. Jerome Powell is currently the head of the Federal Reserve Bank. So
they got that bit of attention to detail right.
But
punctuation is still a challenge.
Yeah, not their strong suit.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Damien, for sending that in. And
It's a
again,
good one.
we would love to hear from you. You can email us at hackinghumans@n2k.com. We were talking about mitigating cyber threats to your organization before your users even see them. The new Phish ER Plus from KnowBe4 was developed to help you supercharge your organization's email security defenses. How? You get a unique crowdsourcing advantage. More than 10 million highly trained KnowBe4 end users from across the globe catch and report malicious email that makes it through all the filters. KnowBe4's Threat Lab then validates it with AI and with human researchers. Phish ER Plus blocks phishing threads other tools have missed and proactively removes them from your users' inboxes. Not quite time travel, but we think you'll agree it's a vital capability in any InfoSec professional's arsenal. Visit knowbe4.com/products/PhishER-plus to learn more. That's knowbe4.com/products/PhishER-plus. And we thank KnowBe4 for sponsoring our show. Joe, I recently had the pleasure of speaking with Joseph Oregon. He is the Chief of Cybersecurity for CISA in their Area Region 9. And our conversation focuses on a recent tabletop exercise that CISA had with the NFL about protecting the Super Bowl. Here's my conversation with Joseph Oregon.
So I think as we look at it, and as we kind of describe, some of the needs for a tabletop exercise, and I think if I can, I'm just going to kind of talk through just a little bit of what is a tabletop exercise, so you can kind of see the importance and the value that it adds to our partners like the NFL and other organizations around the United States. So a tabletop exercise, in a nutshell, it's an informational kind of a discussion-based walkthrough of different scenarios, and they're created or customized by us, by CISA, to help stakeholders address their roles and responsibilities during a specific incident. So as an example, we may help stakeholders by creating a scenario which helps them walk through how they would respond to a ransomware incident, or maybe even an incident response plan, or a physical incident at their location. So I take a moment just to highlight that that this resource and the fact that CISA's regional offices and our headquarter elements have dedicated professionals who help craft tabletop exercises for partners is for free, right? And something that a lot of organizations, whether they're public or private, kind of leverage because it comes with a lot of benefits. We have an actual team that will work with organizations that will actually deploy out to a location, help them walk through the scenario. We try to look at it from a humble approach. So we help facilitate, but we actually we take our cues from those partners. So NFL is one of such partners who reached out to CISA. And because of their involvement with the Super Bowl and various events, they've partnered with CISA in order to kind of put on a tabletop exercise that not only covers what they do within the NFL to manage particular incidents, but also to understand what private sector and public sector entities in the location of their event, how they manage an incident. So really it's this huge collaboration as an example of private and public sector entities that are coming together and walking through this tabletop exercise. And to your initial point, David, it's with regards to why did they approach CISA, and it's more so as looking at as a collaborative relationship, right? They know that we are a government, that we are a government agency, and that's the operational lead for federal cybersecurity and national coordination for critical infrastructure security and resilience, knowing that they want to make sure that, they're kind of checking the boxes as well and kind of understand the processes from a federal government perspective. And then so they reach out and they work with us and work with the local partners there to kind of get involved and provide that assistance, or not assistance rather, but provide that awareness of the events and what they look for as it pertains to security and security scenarios that they can walk through with both public and private sector.
What sort of insights can you share with us about how this tabletop proceeded?
I think what's important is that as we kind of look at it, we did this exercise because we kind of like share a responsibility to secure a large event, right? For both the American people and the international friends that we have participating in these events. So at CISA, we also understand that these events are supported by critical infrastructure. So we find it imperative that we work with various partners to ensure we understand the risk and help our partners plan accordingly, right? So I think they, in a collaborative approach, we're open to discussing with CISA and other agencies, and whether they're local agencies or even private sector or industry partners, to kind of to have this moment of collaboration and just kind of work into scenarios how we would exercise certain processes in order to mitigate or prevent any type of risk.
Yeah, it strikes me that an event like the Super Bowl, it touches so many different things. There's the event itself, and there's people there, and so we have to look out for their safety. But there's the stadium, which requires electricity, and there's transportation, and there's points of national pride where we could imagine our adversaries wanting to take advantage of how widely viewed this is. Can you give us an idea of what goes into planning when you have something of this massive scope like the Super Bowl? It's hard for me to imagine anything larger or more high profile.
Yeah, great question, David. And as we kind of look at our responsibilities and CISA is a very unique agency. And as I mentioned just a second ago, we are the agency that is the operational lead for federal cybersecurity. And at that, we're a coordinator for critical infrastructure security and resilience. So as we kind of provide those resources and those services, we do a significant amount of outreach. More and more partners leverage CISA and our resources in order to provide additional value to mitigating risk within their organizations or their locations. So with that being said, a lot of our agency has decentralized from Washington, D.C., and now we have 10 regional offices throughout the United States. And what's interesting about these regional offices are that the disciplines that reside within those regional offices touch on cybersecurity. They touch on physical security, chemical security, and emergency communications. And we do a significant amount of collaboration within our particular region. So as an example, CISA Region 9, we're responsible for the states of California, Arizona, Nevada, Hawaii, and the entire Pacific. With that being said, we have a number of physical cybersecurity, emergency communication advisors, as well as chemical security advisors, all deployed to what we say the field, or deployed out into different states and counties and cities. They're typically employees that we've hired into the federal government from those local areas that have great connections and have education and certifications required to maintain relationships with different private sector and public sector entities. That collaboration and that relationship has allowed us to message the importance of collaboration. So when we're looking at these type of events, it kind of quickly understood the value that an agency would bring in providing additional assistance, additional visibility, additional information, and an understanding of what we're seeing trending as a potential risk throughout the United States. That add value to an organization, whether they're private or industry, speaks for itself, right? Especially in the nature that we're we're dealing with the threat landscape. We have been both on the cyber and physical side for a number of years now. So I think as we're looking at those partner sets, they become that much more attracted to working with our agency and collaborating with other private sector partners. And as it pertains to these type of events or working very closely in order to mitigate risk, there's definitely a collaborative approach that's very attractive for all partners. And hence, I think we get a good showing when we have these type of events with a private and public sector, where we have a event where we can cross collaborate.
What's your message to folks who aren't operating at the scale or level of someone like the NFL? An organization that's in one of the 50 states and perhaps has a manufacturing facility or something of moderate scale. Think that they may want to reach out and start a relationship with CISA. Is that something that you're looking to encourage?
Oh, we encourage it all the time. And the fact that we're for this example that we used earlier with the NFL, we work with organizations that vary in all kind of sizes, whether they're private or public. We work through K through 12 in cities and counties. We work with critical infrastructure such as water and wastewater. We work a number of state partners as well as private sector partners. So as we look at smaller organizations that are looking to leverage resources that the federal government provides for free. So as in this case, a tabletop exercise, we facilitate those resources and to our partner sets across the board. So we heavily encourage our partners, if they're interested, to definitely reach out to the CISA reps that we do have in the field, or they can go to our website at CISA.gov to identify who those points of contact might be in the respective state. I'd like to make a quick note, and that we're going into Cyber Awareness Month. So on September 29th, today, CISA officially kicks off our 20th Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So throughout October, the month of October, CISA and our cooperative agreement recipients, the National Cybersecurity Alliance, will focus on ways to secure our world. We educate individuals and organizations on how to stay safe online. So this is a collaborative effort between government and industry to enhance cybersecurity awareness on a national and global scale. We're trying to build off of last year's message, that is using strong passwords and password managers, turning on multi-factor authentication, recognizing and reporting phishing, and finally updating software. So we're building off that strong message. And as we look at CISA, what we're trying to do is help shape behavior and behavioral change by adopting and improving ongoing cybersecurity habits that reduce risk while online or on a connected device. So I would encourage our stakeholders, our partners, the listeners, to find out more about Cybersecurity Awareness Month at CISA.gov/cybersecurity-awareness-month. And with that being said, David, that's what I would like to get out to the team or to the listeners. So thank you very much for this opportunity. We are very appreciative for your time.
Joe, what do you think?
I like that Joseph starts this discussion with a definition of the tabletop exercise. It gives you an outline of what it is and what goes on there.
Right.
That's helpful. Also good to hear that CISA will coordinate these and do them for free with you. Yeah. At least if you're the NFL.
If you're the NFL. Right. Yeah. If you're the organization running the single most watched sporting event in the nation.
Right. Yeah, right. Nationally. And large audience globally as well.
Sure.
Practicing for an incident is important. You need to do this with some kind of outside organization running the tabletop exercise, whether that be CISA or some contractor skilled in this type of thing.
Yeah.
I would say that if you are part of the either the cybersecurity leadership in a large organization, you need to be doing this 2 times a year at least. That would be my estimate. Mm-hmm. What do I know, though? The NFL tends to have these large events, right?
Sure.
Like the Super Bowl, which is a great example. It's a high-profile event. Like you said, it's viewed by lots of people.
Yeah.
But it's not just that. Every week there are 15 to 16 games. and there are cameras on all of it. The NFL is above everything else an entertainment organization. That's where they make their bread and butter, is the fact that they have people locked into this sport that sit there and watch the TV religiously every Sunday, or Monday or Thursday. And I'll confess that I have family members that do this.
Me too.
But and I'll also confess that I have other sports that I'm like that with, right? Like I'm not missing any of the Rugby World Cup games this weekend.
All right.
So this makes all of these games, just the number of eyeballs on the TV screen or in person, make all of these games a target for some kind of attack, right? And if you think of that giant, imagine if I gained control of that giant TV in AT&T Stadium in Dallas. My wife has actually been to a game in Dallas. And one of the things she said was, I couldn't look away from the TV, or I had to force myself to look away from the big giant TV and watch the game on the field. Oh. Because, this thing is huge, Dave. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but...
I've only seen it on TV.
Right, yeah. My wife says it's imposing. I didn't go to the game with her because I didn't want to pay $350 for a ticket to go see a game.
Okay.
Not a football game anymore.
Right.
I might pay that for a rugby game. Who knows? One day I might do that. Anyway, this stadium holds 80,000 people.
Yeah.
And with a screen that you can't keep your eyes off of, imagine how, humorous it would be. Let's say it's a mischievous prank, right? And not something horrible. If something funny were to start playing on that the NFL or the Dallas Cowboys didn't endorse, right? Somebody got control of that, you wouldn't be able to look away from it. You wouldn't be able to get it off camera. You couldn't do any of the wide field shots because that screen is always on camera. It's a great target.
Yeah.
So run these kind of exercises like this. Understand what's going to happen. I like that Joseph was talking about how they build relationships with these organizations so that other organizations can use them when they need them. It seems to me like he's doing a really good job of networking all these different people and groups together.
Right.
And by the way, Dave, that was a good question you asked about smaller organizations, small to medium-sized organizations. And Joseph says he welcomes them to reach out to CISA as well. Maybe they don't have the resources to do a tabletop exercise with everybody, but they probably have some kind of resource you can use at some level.
Yeah, and they also want to be able to track the incident. So even if they can't handle your situation personally or whatever, it's never a bad thing to have a relationship with these organizations.
Yeah, the big thing about CISA is they are the left of boom organization.
Right.
They want to help you prevent these kind of attacks from happening.
Yeah.
Or to be prepared for when they do happen. A lot of times, once you experience an event, that's not when you call CISA. That's when you call law enforcement.
Right.
But you call CISA to help you prevent that event or to prepare for that event.
Yeah, and certainly when it comes to the federal government, CISA is leading that charge.
Yeah.
And by all accounts, doing a good job.
Yeah, it's one of the things that is going well.
Yeah. All right. Well, again, our thanks to Joseph Oregon for joining us. We do appreciate him taking the time. That is our show. We want to thank all of you for listening. Our thanks to the Johns Hopkins University Information Security Institute for their participation. You can learn more at isi.jhu.edu. N2K Strategic Workforce Intelligence optimizes the value of your biggest investment, your people. We make you smarter about your team while making your team smarter. Learn more at n2k.com. Our senior producer is Jennifer Iben. The show is edited by Trey Hester. Our executive editor is Peter Kilpie. I'm Dave Bittner.
And I'm Joe Kerrigan.
Thanks for listening.